Everyone awake? Everyone wish they were Michelle Obama this morning? Man, what a speech. What a speech. Well, it's great to be here, and I'm just honored to be able to spend a few moments with you this morning and talk about my favorite topic, which is not just the topic that you might expect from a politician at a convention, but the issue that I think defines our time, and that's a question that we need to ask and answer ourselves every single day, and that is, what world are we living in? I had the great privilege a few weeks ago of interviewing Thomas Friedman of the New York Times. He was down in the Silicon Valley, California, with 700 or so economic development leaders, 14 regions represented, and it was a regional summit. The idea was to move the economy of California around. We wanted a bottom-up, not a top-down approach. It's about regions rising together, and we began the interview with that question: what world are we living in? And we had the opportunity to discuss some of the most impactful trends that will define not only the great state of California, but that define this nation and certainly should define this convention. And that's fundamentally these. One, the merger of IT and globalization, the fact that we're living not in a connected world, but in a hyper-connected world. The issues of energy and climate change that will define a generation, and the incredible importance of dealing with a world that's growing exponentially and, as all of you know, is hotter than it has ever been. And then, of course, the challenges that we all face. We cannot deny the issues of debt and entitlement and taxation, not just, again, impacting the state of California, but obviously this nation and the world we're living in. In all those areas, there's a lot of debate, and there's a lot of finger pointing, there's a lot of consternation, and there's a lot of stress. But there's also a formula, and that formula was a big part of our conversation. That formula is what made California the economy it is today. It's still the 9th largest economy in the world, $1.9 trillion a year economy. We were the tentpole of the American economy between 1950 and 1980. No state in America grew more jobs than the state of California. We grew at an annual rate of about 3.7%, the nation at about 2.2%. But the challenge is self-evident to all of you, a challenge of having 2,011,000 people actively seeking employment in our state remains. The challenge of having 12 counties in our state with unemployment north of 15%. The challenges for those of you that live not in the coast but the inland part of the state, in places like Imperial County at 29.9% unemployment today. Remarkable. That we've got a hybrid economy, we've got a bifurcated economy, that we do not see the kind of even distribution of ingenuity and entrepreneurial spirit that we need to see in this hyper-connected world. Tom talked about, and I thought this was interesting to underscore the point, that he wrote a book called The World is Flat 5 years ago. And in the index, Facebook wasn't even there. This is 2005. Facebook didn't exist. Twitter was a sound. The cloud was in the sky. LinkedIn was a prison. 4G was a parking space. Apps were things you filled out to get to California State University. And Skype, for most of us, was a typo. Think about that. All those things didn't exist 5, 6 years ago. No longer connected, but a hyper-connected world. And that means one thing for us. We can't continue to do what we've done. We've got to recognize and reconcile that reality. We have got to upgrade our formula for success. We've got to go back to those things that made California the envy, not just of this nation, but to the entire world. We have got to reinvigorate. We have got to upgrade that formula for success. And what's that formula? And why does it matter in the context of this convention? It's because it's everything President Barack Obama is talking about, and it creates a crystal clear contrast to the convention of last week and the Ryan budget that Mitt Romney so enthusiastically embraced. And that foundational principle is education. And you know this. Every single person in this room understands this. It's true, it's not just cliche, those that out-educate, out-compete, but it's the conveyor belt for talent. You can't have an economic development strategy without a workforce development strategy. And we in California convey more talent than any other state in our nation. Number two, infrastructure. Bill Clinton may use the words tonight, but we've got to get back to the future business. It is absolutely true, isn't it? I mean, you all know the challenges in California. Heck, I came back from South Korea, talk about education, top performing educational system on the planet. And I flew from the Incheon airport. And if any of you have been to South Korea, that's an island that was built off their coast that's now an airport with 2 golf courses, and they might as well throw them in. And I flew into LAX. I love LA. I love that airport. It needs work. All I'm saying is, respectfully, that's like flying in from the Jetsons to the Flintstones. There's a contrast, and it underscores a $765 billion deficit we have just in our state alone in infrastructure, our ports, our roads, our bridges. We got to get back to the future business. Number 3, we have disproportionately been the beneficiary in California of robust research and development. Just think about the capital, Sacramento. 100 miles around the capital, you've got labs like Sandia Labs and Lawrence Livermore Labs and Lawrence Berkeley Labs and NASA Ames, the great investment that Mayor Lee gets to enjoy every day at UCSF, folks up getting the research and development dollars and the NIH funding up at UC Davis. We disproportionately were the beneficiaries of robust investment in research and development. And finally, open immigration policy, because if we weren't getting first-round draft choice, or rather conveying talent, we always got first-round draft choices. We're always to get the best and the brightest from around the world. That was our formula. That was the secret sauce that made California, that made this nation great. Think about that Ryan budget. In every one of those cases, think about Romney's own plans in terms of what he wants to do. They want to cut education even more deeply. They want to deny opportunities through Pell Grants to millions and millions of people that want to extend to lifelong and forever learning. They want to cut investments in infrastructure, in roads and bridges and ports. They have dramatically supported cut after cut after cut in NIH funding, research and development funding, consistently. And of course, on immigration, their record is self-evident and abject failure. In every one of these instances, we have a president who wants to reinforce, reinvigorate that formula, make the investments so that this country, not just the great state of California, can endure. So for me, these are the important things we need to be focused on. What world are we living in? What was that formula for success that made states like California so essential and so critical? And how can we reinvigorate that formula? And how can we together do the kind of work that needs to be done to reimagine a state that truly, at its best, is still a state of dreamers, of doers, of entrepreneurs, of innovators on the leading and cutting edge of so many new ideas. I'll close with this. This world is also changing in this way. Hierarchy is dead. And this is important in governmental institutions. And I think this is essential as we work through this convention and move towards this campaign and get past this campaign to a different framework of governance. We know now we're living in a world where big is getting small and small is getting big. That the solutions to so many of our problems increasingly are in our hands. These tools of technology that we talked about that didn't exist a number of years ago, as we go mobile, as we localize our efforts, we focus on social, and we have the ubiquity now of the cloud, are dramatically changed the playing field. And the great digital divide now is growing not just within socioeconomic terms, but it's growing increasingly between government and the private sector. I don't know about you, but I have a daughter who utilizes this at 2.5 years old as if she was born. It was in there. It was in my wife for 9 months. She was playing with it. She seemed prepared on day one. She would be described best as a digital native. I am a digital immigrant, and we all understand that distinction. She runs around the house finding newspapers at 2.5 and wondering why they just don't flip like they do on the iPad or the iPhone. She runs up to the TV set and just doesn't understand why it's just not moving. She comes from a completely different frame. And I think it's incredibly important for us in government to reconcile that world we are living in and to begin to reconcile our inadequacies as relating to our ability to connect with people that are more engaged peer-to-peer, more engaged in a collaborative framework than ever, but increasingly bypassing government. We must reconcile this. These tools of technology will dramatically level the playing field. No longer vertical, but horizontal, networked, collaborative, distributed, lateral, moving away from a framework of scarcity to a framework of abundance. And I'll close with this. Today we have a vending machine approach to government. And Eric understands this as he walks out and pulls me off the stage better than anybody. You put in your taxes and you get limited choices. Police, fire, health care, education. If you don't like your choices, you shake the machine. That's the Occupy movement, the Tea Party movement. It's a framework of scarcity. And it's a framework that dominates our political discourse, as opposed to a framework of abundance and a framework that Steve Jobs, a Californian, understood so well, a framework that government doesn't necessarily need to act like a vending machine, but more like a platform. It's not just the innovative technology of the person that came up with the idea, but the creativity of everybody else that utilizes that technology. We have an extraordinary opportunity to change the thinking in terms of our governance and delivery system with a new approach to solving problems that takes a look at the old vending machine model and reimagines this frame along the lines of a government as a platform. To me, California is uniquely positioned to engender that debate, to organize a construct of focus, energy, and solution, and move our economy and hopefully move this nation forward. Final two things. I care about the middle class. I care about working families. I care about labor. And there is no way we're going to have a vibrant middle class. There's no way we're going to deal with the issue of income inequality. There's no way we're going to continue to grow labor in our state unless we defeat Proposition 32. It is essential. You did it in '98, you did it in 2005, and we're going to do it again this year. And finally, a road back to solvency begins through Proposition 30. It is essential that we step up and step in so we can get our state back on track, so we can move away from solvency to a debate about greatness. Thank you all very much.